Okay, testing. I'm basically now down to eliminating the Rhino script syntax, and I've brought in the Rhino geometry. So Rhino comment is RG, and I have imported maths because it just makes for wonderful, more intricate baked geometries. This canopy, and yeah, you can lose yourself in the trigonometry. You don't have to lose yourself in the Rhino window. You don't have to lose your mind in the Grasshopper window. You don't have to lose your mind in the Python window. Let your mind wander as to the power of what trigonometry does. I'm going to stay with the math, even though you can type in, and I could incorporate math dot all of these things, tangents, exponents, floors, whatever, logarithms, powers. I'll slowly try and make better use of that as I can visualize that. Because I think there's enough to play with right there. That's all I'm really concerned about, is showing the power of working Python, GhPython in Grasshopper to generate geometries in Rhino, and playing around with the probably import math as the only other import that I need for right now. You can go down other rabbit holes if you want to. Anyhow, so I brought in the list A, and I'll take this off turntable, and I'll take this off, tuck that into hiding, and we'll go to full view here, and we'll take a look at shaded. So you can see what's going on here. And if I center this again, that it's XYZ, if you were to hold your hand up, you can see that I've brought in a system here that I have taken X and Y, and I've made them type hints. Oops, don't need to do that. Type hint, hopefully it stays on this page. Maybe I'll have to move it over. Type hint integer. And I'm going to do the exact same for Y. Keep in mind that I'm leaving this as single item access. We're not even dealing in lifts, so this is a pretty simple geometry to start. And I have two integer sliders on that. Now, a lot happens when I slide those sliders. You might say, why is that doing so much more than I thought it would do? Well, because I've added some maths in here. But let's at least figure out what's happening. Those lines, when it comes to X, Y, Z, are basically jumping up and down for starters. If it wasn't for all these functions down here, playing around with it in B. A is pretty straightforward. So if I take out if I take out that and run that, you're going to see really what I have is a very simple script for I in range X, which is 6 now. And of course, I can change that to 7. I can change that down to 5. And I can change that 4. I'm going to stagger a point because it's a modular of I being 0 through X. So it would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But it would go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course, odd numbers are going to not be equal to 0, so it's going to print a little higher up, and it's going to print higher up in the Y to whatever height I want to make it. So you can be parametric to the Y. So try and follow this math in this. At least understand here to what's happening as I append a list to generate that. Now, what I did was these curves are coming from taking that data and using my old Grasshopper skills and putting them into interpolated curves and NURBS curves, and then in having those both, I could actually throw them through a count. And I'll show you that a little later because you can't do it now. You can't be building, well, I could be dividing those curves. I'm not sure why my count, oh, because my count depends on C. And if you look at my equation, if I take this out, 1, 2, 3, and bring this one back in, now I should be able to run it. And yes, I should get my points because C is actually giving me data, which is C equals X times Y. So using all those numbers that you bring in as a parameters, trying to limit the amount of parameters to come in so you can control the geometries. Now, of course, I can't take that and flip that matrix because of the, if anybody's familiar with using param viewers and taking a look at your data, you've got something more tricky here that I probably would have to simplify, but I'm still going to have a problem with this one here, which is it's not going to do a flip matrix on me if I do that. So it's okay. I don't have all my data to want to do that. Plus, I don't want to dispatch it, make it into lines or lofts because I'm dealing with just points on a single line. So let's go back in and bring in what the second half does. And I will just comment out this top portion, and I will bring back the bottom portion. And I will run that, and you'll see I'm left with this curve. And you're like, well, what's that curve doing? Well, let's just do it a little more jazz, the same way the other one did. Except instead of leaving it as I left I and I just said, let's multiply y, the integer coming out of y, with the sign of x, and put that in the y direction. And let's do x times the math of cosine. Of course, you can get into here and play infinitely within this range to end up getting some interesting things. And when I run both of these scripts, so please try and follow me here, as I run both of those scripts, and hit run again, I'm able to not only get those points on both sides, but all this stuff here, if I took that off, you've ended up generating those two sets of lines, and then you've gone in and you've said, okay, I want to basically pull the points between them. I want to flip the data, the matrices, and I'll try and make a little sense of that now. You can bring this in, and you can see you have two bits of data. You have A and you have indices. So if you took this through, I know this might be a little more advanced for people that haven't played with it yet, but if you took through a path mapper and actually saw what you had and threw that into a null mapping, you'll see you have an A, and of course you can always go in here and write, if you haven't done this before, parentheses I, and you can get your indices in there and you can start playing with that. So really a flip matrix, if we take a look at this as I, is that, well, we could do the same by just grabbing another one of these and saying, well, what's the flip matrix look like? Let's grab that and see what that one looks like. Create null. And actually, you can go in here, and I think you can actually flip. No, you can't flip. But I think you'll find the data in processing this is swapping out the A for the I. So it understands the data differently. If I was to look at, sorry to get bogged down here, it's been a while since I was playing around with my data tree sets. You see here, instead of having two branches, 25 items each, now I have 25 items with two branches each. And in doing so, I can dispatch those items. I can draw a line between them, which is much easier to do, and I can loft between those lines. And that's how I end up getting line. Now, we're not going to focus too much on all that stuff and shenanigans. We're going to slowly, I want you to become more and more capable with Grasshopper. If you've gone into Path Mapper, you've gone into split trees, shift paths, relative, oh yeah, certainly offsets for relative and relative items. And you've done well in these sets. That's why I think doing math, sets, and vectors and learning 60% of all of that will get you 90% and everything you need to know how to do. We're slowly going to start tucking this in here. So as we get better at scripting Python and Rhino Common, we're going to start bringing the divide curve node into this script. So this will get a little shorter. We'll bring the flip matrix into here. We'll bring the dispatch into here. We'll bring the lines in here, and we'll bring the loft into here. So technically, when we're all said and done, our script will look like this. And that will be it. You'll have that total script. And so that's the real excitement of it. And that's why you want to go into scripting. And of course, the maths make for a much interesting canopy as to what you can do and play with. And as I bring up my other form that was already there and put it back into here, you can see you've got some pretty interesting shapes, and I can leave that one. You got a pen and ink drawing and things that would be very difficult to draw in Sketch and line draw, but you're ending up with some pretty cool geometries and renderings that would be I'm put it on turntable. Usually I don't do this, but if you put it on turntable in there, you can turn it into a perspective view pretty quick. I think that's a nice little, I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's on purpose, but I find it pretty interesting. And if you didn't like that, you can go back to your layout again. You can't do anything while you're on turntable. You can put it right back into layout. And like I said, always have your zoom extends all ready, and you can pop in and see what's going on. Very nice script, really fun to play with. You've got your other forms that you can ghost on other images, and from two sliders, you've got a pretty complex geometry surface. Just because you've done a little bit of math and you've used those variables throughout your whole script. Not too hard for, and I'm sure a good coder could condense this even more. Thanks very much for watching. 8 minutes of fun. I'm going to do one of these videos, kind of a tutorial for writing Rhino script syntax, then Rhino geometry, and then I'm going to do an application like this. I'm not making incredible architecture or art or designs or prototypes, but I'm allowing people to see the transition from Rhino to Grasshopper, and now really Grasshopper into Python. Keep in mind, I never learned CAD in Rhino. I only learned about what the command lines did in Rhino. Mind you, I've gone through Ron Chen's book like 3-4 times, so I guess that's a sense of learning. But I haven't had a lot of time kind of working what would be called off the shelf and Houdini, all these little things, and trying to make single iterations. As soon as I found about recorded history and David Rutten, I just jumped right in the Grasshopper, and I've had fun for almost 2 years. So you can get pretty far, and your mind can wrap around this. Mind you, I had a little bit of math and computer background 30 years ago, but for 30 years of doing none of this and getting into this, I've just had a blast, and I'm not going back. I'll probably live the next decade or so of my life doing things like this. Thanks very much for watching. Please join our private group, GH Script Syntax, and we've got about 150 members right now. It's been up for under a week, and let's see people develop. Let's see people put this out there and start using Rhino.geometry and Rhino Common in their scripts for Grasshopper. And we'll start translating this book if it ever comes in the mail from China. All right. Thanks so much. Bye bye.